Hello, I'm Robert Moore. This is a project on my family history that involves the Oklahoma Land Run, the Dust Bowl, and my family, the Moore family. I'm sure everyone that's listening and watching this video right now have all heard of the Sooners, Boomer Sooner. I'm sure everyone's heard of that, right? No, I don't mean that kind of Sooner. No, I don't mean that one either. Although that one's pretty cute if I have to say so myself. I mean these Sooners. The Sooners that came with the land rush of 1889. This project and this video covers exactly what that land rush of 1889, what happened, why it happened, and how it impacted my family, the Moore family. In this project, I discovered that my family was significantly impacted by the Springer Amendment to the Indian Appropriation Act of 1851 because it led to the Great Oklahoma Land Run that pushed the Moore family to Oklahoma, and ultimately, due to a failed claim, led them to becoming sharecroppers who were devastated by the Dust Bowl of the 1920s. What started this adventure was actually an interview that I completed with George and Leslie Moore, my grandparents, in which I was just asking about the family history and try to find out as much as I could. In this video, we find out exactly how far back we know about the Moores. Do you know how far, if you were to go as far back as you know of, in terms of passed down, do you know where the Moores were at before or anything like that?
Oh golly. Mostly Oklahoma.
Oklahoma? You don't know where they came from to Oklahoma?
No.
No? Okay, so Oklahoma would be as far back as you know for the Moore side?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Well, we know that we don't know how far back we go, but we do know that we were in Oklahoma. So where were the Moores before Oklahoma? Let's find out. To answer this question, I had to go to Ancestry.com. Through this, I moved up the family tree all the way to my grandpa. And then after that, I found James C. Moore, his father, who was a child of James Thomas Moore, who died in 1945. As I was completing my family tree on Ancestry.com, I've discovered James Thomas Moore, who, as you see here, was born in Kentucky but died in Oklahoma. To be more specific, there were 3 specific things that we found while looking at him. 1, he was born in Irvine, Kentucky in 1866. He then married his wife, Amanda, in Kentucky in 1889, and then died in Oklahoma in 1945. So we know they were in Kentucky until 1889. So that begs the question, when did James and Amanda move from Kentucky to Oklahoma? And why? Back to the family tree. In order to find this question, the answer to this question, I had to look through the family tree. I figured I could start with the kids. I'm sure we'd be able to see where these kids were all born, and if I could figure that out, maybe I could figure out a timeline. Well, the problem was there were 15 kids that they had. I thought I was in it for the long haul, but it turns out that their firstborn, Iva May, as you can see, was born in Oklahoma. And if you look at the date really closely, it was in 1890, just a year after they were married in Kentucky. So I needed to confirm that this wasn't a glitch or a mess up. I wanted to make sure that she was indeed born in Kentucky, or at least the other kids might be born there as well. So I decided to look at my great-grandfather to see where he was born. In this, I found a primary source document that would confirm everything that I needed. When I found his World War II registration card, I found out that he was born in Guthrie, Oklahoma, which confirms everything that we just saw with Iva May, that they were in Guthrie, Oklahoma, at least as early as 1908. And if we take her account of her birth being in 1890, that means they were in Guthrie, Oklahoma in 1890. So that begs another question. What happened in Oklahoma between 1889 and 1890 that caused the Moores to move out there? I went to Google. I started trying to find some sources, primary sources specifically, that might be able to help me. I tried to look at some newspapers. And in these newspapers, I found out something pretty interesting. In 1889, there was an opening of a new territory in Oklahoma. As you can see here, there was some big event that was causing a bunch of people to move out to Oklahoma. I had heard in the past the Boomer Sooners. I'm sure everybody's heard that. So I kind of knew that this was probably something along those lines. But what was and what caused the land rush? And why were these gates suddenly swung wide open? To get this answer, we had to go back in time a little bit further and figure out what was happening. We're going to go all the way back to 1851, the Indian Appropriations Act. This act was an act in which Congress passed that created the reservation system, which forced Native peoples to move onto reservations so they could better subdue them. Because of this, Native Americans were very severely restricted and their lands taken away. Fast forward 36 years and we get the Dawes Act of 1887. This breaks those reservations up into allotments. Because they're now allotments, they begin to treat the Native Americans as individuals rather than members of tribes, which it makes it very easy to start taking these lands even further. Which they do in 1889. The dam finally breaks. We get the Springer Amendment, which was a rider attached to the Indian Appropriations Bill, which permitted the opening of the lands. On March 23, 1889, President Harrison set the time of the opening for noon, April 23rd. Then, in just weeks, the Oklahoma Territory was divided up, split, and ready to be allotted to anyone who would claim it. Towns such as Guthrie, Oklahoma, the one shown in the picture, began as just fields like this. This is a picture of Guthrie, Oklahoma on April 20th. By April 22nd, people are traveling out to this land in droves, all looking for a claim of this land. By the 27th, we are already getting a tent city. Thousands of people have already come out to this area, still looking for that claim. By June, that once glorious and empty field is a full-blown city. It's unrecognizable. People take what their home was like out east and bring it west and turn it into Guthrie, Oklahoma. So, let's bring it back to my family. Based off all the information that we have just garnered, from the history that we just gained as well too, we can safely assume that the Moors claimed their piece of land and started their own farm out in Oklahoma, right? Well, that assumption would be wrong. As Alan Leonard said in their article, an estimated 50,000 to 75,000 people took part in the Harrison-Haas's race. Of these, only 1 in 3 claimed land. That left everyone else either to 1, go back to where they came from, or 2, begin sharecropping on other people's land to try to split the bill and try to keep a piece of land for themselves. Since we know that my family ended up staying in Oklahoma, in fact, my grandfather was born in Oklahoma, we can infer then that they actually were sharecroppers on someone else's piece of land. So, going back to my grandfather, we interview him and see what life was like before him and even during his time as sharecroppers on the plantation, all the way from the 1920s and on. Do you know how the Great Depression, especially being sharecroppers, were they in Colorado at this time or were they still in Oklahoma when the Great Depression? Still in Oklahoma. How did the Great Depression affect that?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Everybody just about lost everything.
Yeah.
Because of the depression, and at the same time they were having severe windstorms.
Was this the Dust Bowl?
Blowing the Dust Bowl, yep.
Yep, the Dust Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah, so the impact was, again, almost out of like a history book.
Yeah.
The Dust Bowl, our family falls right into that impact.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that what pushed them into Colorado?
No, it was after. Quite a bit after.
Quite a bit after?
Bowl, because
Okay.
I was 10 when we moved to Colorado, so
Okay.
it was quite a while after.
Yeah. How did the family survive through that?
By the hair on their chin.
Yeah.
They were
Still sharecropping?
all pretty much broke and without anything.
Wow. but still sharecropping, and that's how they survived.
Mhm.
So that's how they were getting money
Yeah.
during that time.
Yeah.
Well, they survived. This picture was taken in Oklahoma of my grandparents' parents and his siblings in Guthrie, Oklahoma, long after the Depression and the Dust Bowl. They made it through, and because of that, I'm here today. Because of the Indian Appropriations Act of 1851, and because of the Dawes Act of 1887, because of the Springer Amendment onto the Indian Appropriations Act, and the land rush of 1889 that followed that amendment, this group of Sooners does exist. My family, my kids, and their kids all exist because of an event that happened so long ago. Thank you for watching.